Powered by Riverside FM.
What up, UP Nation? Welcome to another edition of Unconventional Playbook. And I want my normal UP fans out there to just forgive me because, as you know, from time to time, I take a little bit of a detour. And as you know, I've got my Ohio State Buckeyes who just won the national championship. I have a guy, Mr. Rodney, on the show last week. We were doing the game, talking about the national championship game, and we haven't had a chance to recap or talk about the game since the Ohio State Buckeyes won the national championship. So I would be remiss if I didn't have my guy back on again just to recap it, talk a little bit Ohio State football. We were talking right before we went on the air about some big news. Coach Knowles, we'll get into that. But I just want to welcome Mr. Rodney Young back. Welcome back to UP Nation, Rodney.
What is going on, UP Nation? What is happening, L Train? How you doing, my man?
Man, I'm doing pretty good after last Monday. I mean, I've been on cloud nine. I was a little nervous going into the game, and the Buckeyes jumped out on them, pretty quickly. Then it got, a little bit tight going down the stretch. Notre Dame showed that heart, so I got a little bit nervous again. But our Ohio State Buckeyes pulled it out at the end, man. What are some of your thoughts about the game, Rodney? I thought, Ryan Day, who has been criticized at times for his game plans in big games, this was probably the biggest game of his career. I thought they came out with a solid philosophy during the game. Down the stretch, they could have executed a little better, but I thought overall Ryan Day did a great job in terms of preparing his players to play in such a big moment.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what really happened? Notre Dame went on a 9-minute run in the first quarter, that first series. And I can't say that I wasn't concerned at the time because the defense, they were on their heels. And, to Notre Dame's credit, they pushed the ball down the field. But it was something after they scored that I saw was the quarterback went over to the sideline and he let everything go. He was absolutely exhausted.
Yeah.
And he was beat up because he was taking a pounding because the short yardage, all they were doing were quarterback draws. So I'm sitting and I'm watching the game and I'm like, okay, let me see how Ohio State responds. And they just went down the field and they responded. I said, okay, they getting ready to punch him in the mouth. And so the Buckeyes did that. They came out, defense, strengthened up. It was hard for Notre Dame to move the football. However, shout out to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish because they did not quit.
Did not quit.
No, after Emeka Egbuka fumbled, they went on a run. Okay, and I'm be honest. Was I nervous? Honestly, no. But did I want it to be a game? Yeah, I didn't want a blowout. I wanted it to be a game. And I think I said last week when you and I talked, Coach, it wasn't going to be a cakewalk.
No.
And it wasn't. And so shout out to Notre Dame for making it a game. Now, here's the crucial error. That pass to Jeremiah Smith in the fourth quarter. Number one, as a football coach, in that situation where it was 4th and 11, I am not going man to man. I am going to play a zone. I am going to play behind the sticks. I'm going to put everything in front of me. That's the mistake they made. And I told you last week, pride comes before the fall. And so they really believed that they could cover Jeremiah Smith. And if you think about it, if Will Howard would have threw that ball out a little further, Jeremiah Smith would have walked in the end zone.
Walked in there.
Okay. So, that I think is the most critical mistake that was made But in terms of was that a great football game? It was. I do. I tip my hat to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish for making it a game. However, the Ohio State Buckeyes is your national champion.
Yes,
So
sir.
I will take that. It's funny. I'd seen someone ask, say, would you rather have beaten Michigan and lost the national championship, or would you have rather lost to Michigan and won the national championship? And I thought that was the most asinine question that was ever asked of me. Okay, don't get me wrong. I love to beat the team up north. And last week, I know if you look in the comments, there's someone that said, hail the victors. Well, that was my brother. That was actually my older brother, who's a Michigan guy. So we've been going back and forth at it, Coach, since this game. But no, Ryan Day came up at the right time. He did get a little conservative toward the end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter. Got a little tight. He had some runs, some quarterback keeps that I didn't understand at that point. However, Jeremiah Smith, probably one of the top freshmen, the top football players in the country, came through.
Yeah, I look at Riley Leonard, man.
Mm-hmm.
He showed a lot of heart. I mean, that first drive, you mentioned the first drive. I knew he was a running quarterback. He could do some things with his legs, but I didn't expect for Coach Freeman to really highlight that as much as he did on the first drive. Like you said, with the quarterback draws, I mean, it was a physical drive on Notre Dame's part, and it really tested the Ohio State front. Like, I just thought that was the first drive opened my eyes. And it was funny because, like you, when they scored that touchdown right off the bat, I said, man, that was an impressive drive.
Mm-hmm.
But then I said to myself, can he physically keep this up if this is the game plan, can he physically keep this up for the whole game? And like you said, they went over to the sidelines, and everything he had ate before this game for his pregame meal came up. And I said, there's as much heart as this young man has, there is no way he can keep this up for 4 quarters.
Right.
So I wasn't necessarily worried. But unlike you, I wanted it to be a blowout. I don't want to have these nervous times, Rodney. I wanted the Buckeyes to be able to run through Notre Dame. I was comfortable. I said to myself, and this was the kiss of death for the Buckeyes, because this is what usually happens to teams that I root for. I was like, this is going to be one of the easiest championships that I have ever won as a fan, where I could just sit back and relax. And then all of a sudden, as soon as that thought popped into my head, here comes the comeback. And it started with that Abuka fumble.
Mm-hmm.
Credit to Coach Freeman. I mentioned to you last podcast that the thing that I was most worried about with Notre Dame was what? Their resilience,
right,
and their resolve, man. This football team, again, to come back from their only loss of the season, which was a bad loss, to Northern Illinois, to be able to go undefeated the rest of the way, go through the playoff bracket, and then face Ohio State for the national championship. It's that heart of a champion sometimes that gets you over the hump. I'm sure you've coached teams like that where you may not have the most talented team, but you know the young men that you're coaching have a tremendous amount of heart. And I saw a lot of that with Notre Dame during that championship game. But lucky for our Buckeyes, it turned out well for us. I thought, Rod, it was one of the best games that Will Howard had played. This is a kid that I thought was an upgrade from the quarterbacking that we had the previous year before. And I know that in some of these big games, especially the Michigan game, especially the first Oregon game, this young man was criticized. And not that he wasn't above criticism, but he took a lot of heat. And for him to play the way he's played in this playoff bracket, arguably going through the toughest road to a national championship that any team has ever had, and then beating a really good defensive Notre Dame team, hats off to Will Howard, man. What do you think about that kid?
I was so impressed with Will Howard during this tournament, was because he matured as you've seen things go. He learned how to overcome adversity. That Michigan game was, I mean, it really started with the first Oregon game. That first Oregon game took a lot out of him. That
Mhm.
Michigan game really took a lot out of him. But then for him to bounce back, have a good game against Tennessee, to come back and beat number 1 Oregon, okay, and avenge that, all right, and then to beat Texas, okay, and then to come out and go, I believe it was either 13 for 13 or 16 for 16
Mhm.
coming out of the gate. And, he looked in that game like an NFL quarterback, okay? He was decisive in where he wanted to go. He used his legs when they went cover 0 and had everybody covered. He was able to take off. He didn't make mistakes. He didn't throw an interception. I mean, I think Will Howard's stock went up exponentially in terms of the NFL. But the last quarterback that I seen come through Ohio State that played with that kind of confidence was Glenville's own Troy Smith.
Okay.
And so it was just, I had a confidence at a point because he was just peppering the ball all over the place. And you could just see the confidence in his eyes. Will Howard grew up. He grew up in that game.
Yeah, big time, man. Big time. And I agree with you. I remember the last podcast, you said the Browns should take a look at him.
Mhm.
I know that there are a lot of people on the fence in terms of whether he's a pro quarterback or not. If you didn't think Will Howard was a pro quarterback, he definitely should have impressed his critics out there because he was diversifying his portfolio out there. Like you said, he was spreading the ball all over the place, making plays with his legs, design quarterback runs. Some things were unscripted where he just had to run and make a play. I mean, the guy absolutely was big time during the game and was a big reason why Ohio State won that game. And then you look on the defensive side of the ball, the adjustment that Ohio State made after that first drive just speaks well about the coaching and speaks well about Ohio State's personnel and being willing to adapt. What are your thoughts about the D?
The D's been playing, lights out all year. Like I said, with JTT on one side, Jack Sawyer on the other, Caleb Downs, Iguanosa, I mean, Corey Simon, those guys, the scheme that Jim Knowles had, okay, and being able to, after that first drive, they made the adjustments. Him and the defensive line coach, Larry Johnson, who to me is a legend in Columbus. Larry Johnson, they got on them and let them know, no, these guys are not going to keep running the football like that. And they started to shut it down, which had to cause Notre Dame to start passing. Well, you got to block that front four. And Notre Dame had a problem in blocking that front four.
Yeah.
So it really started to rear its head. It just honestly that the defense, the Ohio State defense was better than the Notre Dame offense. And it's not taking anything away from Notre Dame. They did, after that hard loss, they went undefeated. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for Coach Freeman and his coaching staff. And I'm going to be honest with you, that Notre Dame team is going to be tough to beat next season.
Oh, yes.
They're going to be tough to beat next season. Okay. And so, but yeah, that defense was off the chain. Real quick with Will Howard, I'm going to be honest. I'm not saying he is him, but there are things that he reminds me of this quarterback. And that's the quarterback in Buffalo. That's Josh Allen.
Oh, yeah. I can
He
see
reminds
that.
me a lot of Josh Allen because he's got the arm talent to throw the ball, okay? But he has the ability to use his legs. And he's not a little guy. He's a big quarterback. And that's why I said the Browns need to take a look, okay? Because the kid is a winner. And they need to take a look. Now, will they do that? I don't know. That's another subject and another day.
Hey, man, great comparison. I see a lot of Allen in him. I think it's a great comparison. But Rodney, sometimes I think about, man, this is why we coach sports.
Mhm.
You know, there is such a thin line between success and failure, and in your career, you just have no idea which way, you know, your career is going to take you. And this is why God is so great, man. Because think about this.
Absolutely.
Like all of the things that we're talking about the success of Ryan Day. We're talking about the success of Will Howard. Rodney, do you know that if they don't revamp the college football playoffs, none of this happens.
Right. Absolutely.
We lose to Michigan,
Mhm.
and the season, for all intents and purposes, is over. Ryan Day is probably fired.
Mhm.
Will Howard's stock probably plummets.
Mhm.
And then the whole conversation is about Ohio State spent all this money, $20+ million on all these guys. They lost to Oregon the first time they played them. You know, they can't beat Michigan. The whole narrative is different, man. Do you ever sit back and think about, I don't want to say how lucky Ohio State is, but it's very fortunate that everything just kind of got revamped. You know, the playoff field got expanded, which allowed Ohio State to get in and make this fantastic run. How incredible is that, man?
Oh, absolutely. But think about it, you know, with the original format, okay? With the original format with the four teams, if Ohio State, as you said, coach, loses to Michigan, they're done.
Yeah,
That's why the Michigan-Ohio State game was so big.
yeah,
Because regardless of if Michigan was down, their sole purpose was to beat Ohio State and vice versa. Okay. And so when the playoff format came, the first one, okay, and the Buckeyes won that one. Okay. I believe they beat Alabama at that time. That's
yeah,
when they beat Nick Saban, in Alabama. They were fortunate in that aspect.
yeah,
Okay. Now you fast forward to now you got the 12 team. And I said this the last time you and I talked. There were some teams in that 12 team that we got into it, shouldn't have been there. But
right.
if Ohio State loses to Michigan, which they did in past years, game over. They're
That's
done.
it.
You're right. Ryan Day's gone because they're gonna run him. They're gonna run him out.
Yeah,
He's done. And then you're gonna have kids hit the portal because they don't want to be there anymore because they're there to win national championships and be on TV and go to the NFL. So yes, Ohio State is very, very fortunate to have made this run. However, it shows a lot of moxie because they could have folded after Michigan and they didn't. And to come out and beat the top teams in the country and go to the national championship, win the national championship, but the games before it, not just beat teams, but they bludgeoned them.
Yep.
Okay, showed you, and they went in as a number 8. Honestly, did Ohio State coach look like the number 8th ranked team in the bowl? No, they didn't. Okay, you could honestly say, well, they were number 2 behind Oregon because Oregon had beaten them.
right.
But because of that loss to Michigan, they dropped. Also, by the playoff form going, yeah, they dropped to 8. In all actuality, coach, they probably should have dropped out.
Probably.
Okay, but they
Yep.
didn't. So no, they were very fortunate. The chips fell, and I'm very happy about it. Being a Buckeye fan, I know Michigan fans don't like it, but that's okay. They'll get over it.
Yeah. And here's the thing, man. You know, I think the black mark on this season is always going to be that Michigan game. I think even though we lost to Oregon, it was a well-played game on both sides. You know, sometimes you just, when you play well, sometimes you just come up short. Obviously, the Michigan game, we didn't play well. But I will say this, and I had a debate with one of my coworkers, and I said, out of all the national championships that have been won, and you look at their seasons, man, this has got to be one of the most impressive resumes from a national champion that I've ever seen. I mean, you could throw Michigan in my face all you want. The Buckeyes lost. But you said it very astutely last time you and I were on the podcast together. You said Ohio State had beaten, I believe it was 6 out of the 12 playoff teams
Yeah.
that played in the playoffs this year. I mean, you could throw Indiana in there. You can. I mean, it's very impressive. And then to get in the playoffs and go on a run and beat Tennessee and beat Oregon and beat Notre Dame, big brands, brands, schools that have great tradition when it comes to college football. It has got to be, if not the best, I know it's top 3, and I'm sure it ain't 3 in terms of national championship runs that you ever have seen from a college football program.
Absolutely. It absolutely is. I mean, like I said, you go they beat Tennessee, they beat Oregon, they beat Texas, they beat Notre Dame. You can throw Penn State in there. Okay? You can throw Indiana in there. That's 7 teams. That's 7 teams that was in a 12-team playoff that Ohio State beat.
It's impressive.
It's very impressive. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm not going to let my Michigan haters poo-poo on this. I'm not going to let the national pundits poo-poo on this. Now, I did see, I saw something come across said, is Ryan Day owed an apology? No, he's not. He's not. He's not owed an apology because at the end of the day, when it comes down to Columbus, you have to beat that team up north. And since he has been at Ohio State, he has not beaten a team up north. Now, what softened the blow is the fact that he won the national championship. Now, I say this because tradition at Ohio State is when you beat Michigan, you get gold pants. I'd rather have the national championship trophy than a pair of gold pants.
Absolutely.
Okay? So, like I said, shout out to Ryan Day. He did what he needed to do. He galvanized this team. And you could see it at the end of the game, just the emotion that he had. Okay? He threw his headset in the stands. He was so caught up in emotion because he heard all of the trash talk, and rightfully so. But he stayed focused, and they won the national championship. And so kudos to Ryan Day. Kudos to Ryan Day.
Yeah, I was pretty harsh on Ryan Day. I'm not even going to sit here and lie. Anybody that's seen my podcast, I was hard on him, and I don't think I owe him an apology. What I owe him as an Ohio State fan is a pat on the back saying, way to go, and turning this team around to win a national championship, which is not an easy feat. For me, it's just a little bit different. Like, everybody wants to beat that team up north, but it wasn't necessarily the loss, Coach. It was the way they lost and the way the Buckeyes looked the majority of the season. If the playoffs was not proof of what Ohio State should have been doing and proof of what Ohio State potentially could have looked like for the majority of the season, gives you an inside look of why people were so upset. Everybody keeps pointing at the Michigan loss. And yeah, it was a bad loss, but it was how they lost and what the philosophy was of the coaches. It just didn't look good. It just didn't seem right. You got all these weapons, Jeremiah Smith, Abuka, Cardell Tate, Junkins, Henderson in the backfield, and you're looking inept on offense. Like, it was almost football malpractice. It was just unacceptable. And I think that's the heat that Ryan Day got. And it was heat that was well-deserved, like you said. Credit to him and his coaching staff. They had that meeting. They had that all-players meeting. Ryan Day was involved in that. And something happened in that meeting to turn things around. So credit to the Ohio State Buckeyes and Ryan Day. Now, here's the big problem, Coach. The big problem is this. Whenever you win a championship and you start doing something really well and you're at the top of the mountain, what happens is people want to come in and start poaching all of your important parts away. And now with NIL deals, It is pretty scary. It's been reported that Jeremiah Smith, although the team hasn't been named, there has really been no specifics, that he's being offered $4.5 million to enter the portal. To enter the portal. Now, it's not just Jeremiah Smith. I am positively sure that it's other players on the team as well. Jeremiah Smith is the most notable. But this is new territory with the NIL deal. Players can leave like free agency in the NFL. How do you combat that? I mean, what are your thoughts about the possibility of Jeremiah Smith going somewhere else and playing? I mean, it's the wild, wild west in college football.
Right. So let me break it down to you. I got a little breaking news for you.
All right.
Okay. So Jeremiah Smith is staying at Ohio State. There's
Yes,
a couple
sir.
reports that came out. And actually the teams that offered money to him, I have those too. And
Okay.
one was Notre Dame. Okay. And
Right.
the other team was, let me look at my notes. Oh, Oregon.
Okay.
Okay. They offered him about $4 million. However, it got back to Jeremiah Smith and he tweeted some information out. His family is very loyal. And so he squashed it real quick because Oregon also offered Carnell Tate $1 million to leave. And so Carnell Tate hasn't made his decision yet. I truly believe he's going to stay. Jeremiah Smith is going to stay. But to answer your question, Ryan Day came out yesterday, and he talked about the problem with the NIL deals is that there is no enforcement. And what he means by that is that by these teams reaching out to these kids, that's tampering. And so the problem with that is the NCAA is not enforcing the rules of tampering. However, in any given sport, whether it's the pros, college, when you see that top team, the way you get that top team and break them down is you start taking guys away from them.
Yep.
So that's why people are going after. I mean, I would, if I had the money, I'd go after Jeremiah Smith too.
Absolutely.
But how do you stop it is you have to enforce it. You have to enforce the rules of the NIL. Basically what it is these young men are using it as free agency. That's what it is. You called it, coach. It's free agency. You got kids that's leaving programs for the top dollar. I mean, let's be honest. You got kids who grew up with nothing, coach.
Yeah.
And now you got teams saying, hey, we'll give you $1.5 million, $2 million. That kid hadn't seen $2 million in his life. So he would go play for Podunk U if they're going to give you $2 million. The problem is it's the competition. Coaches are trying to compete. And right now, and people talking about how much money Ohio State spent, the $20 million, but they don't understand that Georgia did the same thing. Georgia spent about $20 million on their squad. Okay,
Oregon did too.
Oregon too. Okay. Now, going into that, like I said, they're trying to poach talent. Now, also, I mean, there are a lot of guys that are leaving, and they had to wait till after the national championship game, and we'll get into that. But how do you stop it? The NCAA has to enforce it. But right now, the blue bloods who have the money, they're going to spend it. And these kids, most of these kids, African-American kids, coming from, homes that may not have had a lot of income, I can't be angry at them. I can't be mad at them because they've been offered money that they'll never see. You and I both know over the years, the colleges has been making so much money off of these kids.
Oh, yeah.
Making a ton of money off these kids. Now these kids are getting a piece of the pie. I can't be mad. Okay, now loyalty goes out the window. Now, and for Jeremiah Smith stayed for loyalty, but don't think that Ohio State ain't gonna break him off. They gonna break him off because he's the top freshman in the country. So they gonna, and I truly believe that once a kid is committed, should they stay? Yeah, but the way that this NIL money is being flowed, You can't blame them for leaving.
Yeah. And here's the thing, man. Loyalties are going to be tested because I think you make a really, really great point. A lot of these kids come from families that are just scraping to get by. And if you are a player, the big question is, what is the ceiling? There used to be a wrestler way back in the day called the $1 Million Man, and his shtick was everybody got a price.
Right.
You can make anybody do anything you want, until you really hit that price. And so if you were to offer a guy just something that he really couldn't turn down while he's watching maybe his mom or dad working 2 jobs, parents are stretching themselves thin to be able to come watch them play games, the travel, the transportation, it's going to make it easier for these players to leave. And like you said, you really can't blame them. And it's scary, Rodney, for a team like Notre Dame. I don't remember the specifics of this, so correct me if you know and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe every team that made the college football playoff got $20 million to be shared amongst their conference. So you look at a team like Notre Dame, they're independent. They play an ACC schedule, but they're not official members of the ACC. I know it's been bounced around that they may join the Big Ten. I don't see that happening. It's amazing to me that they have been able to stay independent as long as they can. And now because they were in the college football playoffs, they get the 20 mil and they don't have to share it with anybody.
Right.
That goes in their pocket. They can use that for NIL stuff. So as long as Notre Dame stays relevant, they're at a disadvantage where they can never really receive a bye because they're not in a conference. But if they're able to pocket that kind of money and to be able to use that for NIL deals, that makes Notre Dame a really scary entity.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, Marcus Freeman, Coach Freeman's done a great job. He has set a precedent. He has laid a foundation, at that program. And you're right, by them being independent, that's $20 million that's in their pocket. The only other team that I see that may start getting athletes, coming into their program is North Carolina.
Yeah.
And that's because Bill Belichick is there. All these kids want to go pro. They want to go pro. So that's why they want to go to these programs that are going to set them up to be able to play professionally. So you're going to see an influx of kids get in that portal and start showing up in North Carolina, okay? Because he has a pro-style staff there. You're going to see, like I said, the Blue Bloods, the Notre Dames, the Ohio States, the Penn States. You're going to start seeing it because a lot of these kids have dreams of playing professional football, okay? But that NIL money, you cannot turn that down. I remember when Marvin Harrison Jr. was a senior and was getting ready to leave, junior, getting ready to leave, and they were saying Ohio State was trying to offer him $15 million to stay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, that was more money that, fortunately enough for Marvin Harrison, he didn't really need the money, seeing as that his father was a Hall of Fame All-Pro. So he didn't need the money. But it's just the fact that Ohio State drum up the money. And don't think if Jeremiah Smith was thinking about walking away, that the boosters there at Ohio State was not going to match that money. They were going to match that money. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
When you look at Ryan Day, again, my hat's off to him. He wins the national championship. You know Ohio State is what it is. You know he's going to be held accountable for that team up north game every year. How much of a honeymoon period by winning the national championship does this provide Ryan Day? I mean, is it back to square one if he loses that Michigan game next year? Like, what does this do for Ryan Day at Ohio State? I'm intrigued to hear thoughts about that.
So I'm going to say it like this. By him winning the national championship, he got a stay of execution.
Yeah.
And that stay of execution is only going to last till the season starts again. Then at that point, they're going to hype it up. because he has not beaten Michigan. He hasn't. If he beats Michigan, all of this goes away.
Yeah.
Just one time. Okay? It goes away. However, he can try to repeat what he did this year, next year. I'm going to be honest, I don't think that's going to fly.
Right.
Okay? I don't think that's going to fly. And then also, when you look at it, you and I talked about this a little bit. When they played during the season, they were in some dogfights with teams they shouldn't have been in dogfights with. And that's what I think you were talking about, Coach, when it came to lackluster during the season. I watched them get in a dogfight with Northwestern. And Northwestern shouldn't have been on the field with these guys.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I think Ryan Day has enough rope for the season. Now, mind you, his first game is against Texas. And that is the Arch Manning Texas team. Because Quinn Ewers is gone. So now you got to deal with Arch Manning. Okay? So they coming off the bat. All right? They're coming. They're going to be number one in the country, Ohio State. They're number one in the country because they won the national championship. But Ryan Day has a stay of execution. If this upcoming season doesn't go well, and or he does not beat the team up north, Ryan Day will be doing commentary somewhere, whether it's ESPN, NBC, whatever it is, because the fans, it's that Janet Jackson song, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" That's how they're going to judge Ryan Day. What have you done for me? Okay, you got the national championship. Good job. But you got to beat Michigan. Now, if they can beat Michigan and then win the national championship, Ryan Day turns into almost a god because you've won them both. But if you can't beat Michigan and you think you can run and get that national championship again and you do so, that's not going to guarantee that Ryan Day will be there the year after that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And please forgive me for this next question because it may be a little bit too early to make a diagnosis, but you mentioned that first game of the season with Texas, and you got the Manning kid over there that he's been waiting to play for a long time. Quinn Ewers is heading to the league. Who's the quarterback of Ohio State next year? That first game. I mean, you've got Julian Sayin, who is supposed to be the guy, the guy that we poached from Alabama. For all intents and purposes, the kid is smart, can make all the throws, highly touted quarterback coming out of high school. But then you got another kid. You got the St. Clair kid. Ooh. It is going to be an interesting quarterback battle. I was under the assumption, Coach, that it was Julian Sayin's job. But I'm hearing from my resources within the Ohio State realm of things saying, wait a minute, that's not a done deal. That's going to be a quarterback battle going into camp. What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. Tavian St. Clair, I hear, is the real deal.
That's what I hear.
I've heard the same thing from a lot of people that I've seen, a lot of things that I've researched. That young man is the real deal, but they also say Julian Sayin is the real deal too. So it's going to be a quarterback battle. They got a third quarterback there. He's going to be a junior, Mason Maggs. Nobody's really heard of him, but he's there. Tavian St. Clair is he's the truth. That young man is the truth. But I've heard so much about Julian Sayin. That is the one reason Devin Brown got into the portal and left. Yeah. Devin Brown wasn't, and even Aaron Nolan left was because of Julian Sayin. So it is going to be a battle. Now, to answer your question, if I were to have my arm twisted after what I have seen out of both quarterbacks, I'm going to go with Julian Sayin.
Yeah.
Because Tavian St. Clair is a freshman, Ryan Day's history is he's going to let the young fellas sit and let him watch. He may go in and throw him a package in there just to get his feet wet. But from everything that I've heard about Julian Sayin is that kid can make every throw, and he's just a natural-born leader. They've already rallied behind him. Will Howard has spoke highly of him. Devin Brown has spoke highly of him, even though Devin went into the portal. So I'm looking at Julian Sayin as the starting quarterback next year, and I think it's going to be a shootout between him and Arch Manning. Honestly,
Yeah, Julian Sayin, man, I heard he was so impressive in camp.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't buy that there was a serious thought about him surpassing Will Howard. I mean, you don't bring Will Howard in the way you brought him in for him to sit on the bench. But people were talking about there was really, some people within the organization that thought this kid was ready to go this year. Now, I don't know how serious that talk was, but I think it's safe to say that there was at least he made the Ohio State quarterback coaches and their coaching staff at least have a conversation.
Right.
And that's what I tell freshmen that come into our program. Make us as a coaching staff have a conversation about you. And I think Julian Sayin has at least done that for the Ohio State Buckeyes and their coaching staff this past year.
Yeah, even me coaching in football, it's a very rare occasion that you have a freshman come into your program that is elite. And for me, I'm old school. A lot of times I understand the elite aspect of a football player, of a player, but I also like to see them sit behind a veteran. If I have a junior or a senior, don't get me wrong, I will play the best player. So if that freshman outplays him, he's going to get the playing time because at the end of the day, I'm trying to win. However, if they're similar in styles and they're really, and they're competing, they're battling, I'm going to go with the older kid, and I want that younger kid because I got him another couple of years. Now, it's different in college because you have the portal, okay?
Yeah.
It's different from me being in high school to college. But I'm really curious to see this quarterback battle. I really am because I think it's just going to make the Buckeyes that much better. You go from Will Howard to possibly a Julian Sayin or a Tavian St. Clair, and these guys are slinging the rock, and you still got Jeremiah Smith. You still got Carnell Tate.
Yep.
You got a host of other receivers that are coming in because when I check the portal, you got there's a tight end that is transferred in from Purdue, and he had a good season at Purdue. So the weapons are still around.
Yeah.
You're just replacing now. Even in the running back room, you got Bo Jackson from Via Angela St. Joe's.
Yeah.
Okay, not the Bo Jackson we think, but that young man he's ranked number 5 in the state as a running back. He's committed to Ohio State. Okay, so it's a C.J. Donaldson. Okay, he transferred from West Virginia. So they're just retooling, and what makes it even better is because they've won the national championship. Now, where it used to be a battle between Ohio State and Michigan on recruits, well, now that Ohio State, although they lost to Michigan, they won the national championship. They was on the big stage. That's what draws kids to them. So,
and again, man, it's these are good problems to have. I look at the other side of the ball. You gave me some just shattering news before we got on the air about Coach Knowles, not being with the Buckeyes next year. I think we're going to be okay. Like, I'm not panicking, but I just like what he did as a coach to really improve our defense. It's a big loss for the Buckeyes.
I think right now, yes, because Jim Knowles had that defense flying all over the place. However, that is going to be a coveted position for some defensive coordinators in the country to come because you got some studs that's still there at Ohio State playing defense. Okay, Iguanosa did not declare for the draft. He said he was coming back, so he'll be back. You got one last year, Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is gonna be there. Is JTT and Jack Sawyer gonna be a loss? Yeah, but like I said, Larry Johnson, who is the defensive line coordinator, he is a guru, and so
yes, sir.
The next ones is coming up. Okay, so I think right now it's a shock because they didn't, you win a national championship and then you go to Penn State. So there are questions on what was going on behind scenes, because why did Jim Knowles feel the need to leave Ohio State after winning a national championship to go to Penn State? Well, it's because of the money.
Yeah.
Okay, he's got the ring, so now Penn State offered him an insane amount of money for a coordinator to make a unilateral move. I'm not mad at it. Now, does that make Penn State stronger than Ohio State? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't know if Coach Franklin at Penn State thinks by grabbing Jim Knowles that this is going to get him over the hump and beating Ohio State. Because there's a lot of coordinators that left Ohio State and went somewhere else, and Ohio State still came in there and beat the tar out of them. So Penn State is still the little brother to Ohio State. I don't see Penn State, even though they got a top-notch quarterback there, Ohio kid. But I think right now it's a shock. But if I know Ryan Day, he's on the phone right now talking to, or him or Chip Kelly, because they got connects. Somebody's coming in there that will replace Jim Knowles.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Ohio State, when it comes to, the defensive side of the ball, they are a highly touted destination. Losing Knowles is a void, but I'm sure there are some great defensive minds out there, whether they're affiliated with Ryan Day or not, that would be interested in coming in and, as you put it, coaching these studs. Because I think Ohio State definitely has a lot of left in the tank in terms of players on that defensive side of the ball that can get it done. UP Nation, please hit that like and subscribe button. This is Unconventional Playbook. Hey, Rodney, I want to hit you with one question. I was texting back and forth, and I thought this was interesting, man, last night. We were texting back and forth, and we were just talking sports, and he asked me what was the sport in the state of Minnesota. He knows that, I've been up here for a long time. I'm living right on the border in between Wisconsin and Minnesota. I'm more of a Minnesota fan than anything. But he hit me with the question, what is the sport organization in the state of Minnesota? If you could combine, like he thought high school football is really big in Texas. So they're their own entity and organization. When you look at Ohio State, if you had to rank the top 4 sports organizations, and if you feel like you should do so, include high school football in there, what is the number 1 sport or organization in the state of Ohio right now? If you had to put, what would you put as number 1?
Well, honestly, Ohio is a football state.
Yep.
It's a football state right now. I'll go as far as saying this: Ohio State 1.
Okay.
The Cincinnati Bengals 2.
Ooh. Okay.
The Cleveland Browns. No, let me stop. No, because you have in terms of high school, you have Massillon, which is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have a lot of high school teams that are powerhouses, but the Browns right now are probably toward the bottom of the totem pole. If you were to go to Ohio and you add, like you're asking me, what is the top sport in Ohio? It is football. It's football, and then basketball is 1A.
Yeah.
Right behind it, because there's been some monsters that have come out of playing high school basketball in the state of Ohio. So I was blessed to watch some great ball players. Like I said, yourself and the guys you play with at Warrensville Heights. Got to coach at Bedford Heights. Got to see LeBron when LeBron was doing his thing at St. Vincent St. Mary. Got to, and a lot of folks don't got to understand about Ohio basketball. Chester Mason, comes to mind. There's a lot, but if you talk Ohio, you talk football first. And so the Buckeyes right now run the state of Ohio.
I agree with that. I never seriously thought about it until my guy, Terrence, who I'm sure is going to be watching this show. We called him T back in Warrensville. He hit me with that, and he hit me with Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't argue Ohio State, and I haven't lived in Ohio for a long time, but it's very difficult for me to see the Cincinnati Bengals over the Cleveland Browns. I just think as bad as the Cleveland Browns has been in terms of popularity in the state and in terms of the passion from the fan base, I almost feel like the Browns can be as bad as they want to be, and they're always going to have that. Maybe I'm wrong. Joe Burrows, I mean, he has done a tremendous job with the Cincinnati Bengals, but I just remember growing up, man, the Cincinnati Bengals was a bad word. I mean, nobody really cared about the Bengals, and I know things have flipped and things have changed, but I know Ohio State is one. I always in my mind think of Cleveland as number two, but like I said, I definitely could be wrong with that. My second question to that, Rodney, is where do the Cleveland Cavaliers fall? Like, did they surpass everybody when they had LeBron James there winning rings and having the Cleveland Cavaliers relevant? Like, did the Cavaliers ever surpass the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Cleveland Browns, and Cincinnati Bengals when LeBron had his run there?
Now that's a great question. Okay, so if we're gonna put it in that context, and we eliminate high school, sports, and we just go, how would I rank sports in Ohio?
Yeah.
The years that LeBron took the Cavaliers to the NBA Finals, those years they were top.
Okay.
But right now in Ohio, specifically Cleveland, you're going to go with the Browns, Cavs,
Yep.
Guardians.
Okay.
That's just how it's been since I've been a kid. It was always the Cleveland Browns, okay? And you're right, that fan base, I don't care how dysfunctional the Browns are, okay? And they are dysfunctional. Since 99, they have been dysfunctional. The fans of Cleveland are going to support them, okay? The reason that I put the Cincinnati Bengals there is because of Joe Burrow, because of Jamar Chase, because of the weapons that are there. They have that ability to make the playoffs year after year, okay? But in terms of popularity, if you were to grab someone in Ohio, not in Southern Ohio, because in Southern Ohio, they're going to talk Cincinnati.
Yep.
In Northern Ohio, they're going to talk about the Browns. Not very loudly, but they're going to talk about the Browns. So to answer your question, the sports teams in Ohio, no disrespect to the Blue Jackets, the Columbus Blue Jackets. No disrespect to them. But hockey is not the most popular thing, in Ohio. So it's going to be the Browns, then the Cavaliers. Now, if Donovan Mitchell and that group can get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and possibly win a championship, that's going to flip-flop.
Yep.
Because the fans of Cleveland are going to ride with who's winning. Okay? So if the Guardians went to the World Series, they're going to flip-flop. But right now, you can say, and it's because, right now, because the Cavs went off on that 15-0 run. However, they've been getting their heads cracked the last 3 games.
Yep.
So it's still going to be the Browns, the Cavs, the Guardians, and then the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, when you talk about specifically the city of Cleveland, I got a hot take for you. I would even say right now, after, and this may sound ludicrous, but after a national championship, and I'm talking about just the specific city of Cleveland, I still think the Cleveland Browns are top dog. And the only reason why I say this, man, is I can see the pulse of it in social media that I follow. Like, I think everybody gave kudos to Ohio State. I mean, all the Cleveland fans, Ohio State win, congratulations, great job, Ryan Day. And I just felt that. But if the Cleveland Browns ever won a championship, like the social media landscape would just be unbelievable. And not that it wasn't with Ohio State. I'm not saying that it wasn't. But it was almost like, yeah, great job, Ohio State. We love you guys. Good run. If that was the Browns, coach, if that was the Browns, that place would be on fire. Cleveland would be on fire.
Right.
When
You
that
think
happens,
you
that
think the
city
parade
is going to be on fire.
You think the parade after LeBron, that 2016 championship, was nuts? If the Cleveland Browns won a Super Bowl, they'd have to shut that. They'd shut that city down.
Shut it down.
Shut it down. Because think about it. But the problem with the Browns is they get you to a level and just absolutely rip your heart out. Red Right 88, the drive,
Yes,
the fumble, the
oh,
field goal.
oh,
They just rip your heart out. You want to ride with the Browns, but then they get to a level and you become depressed. But each and every year, Browns fans are more optimistic. Okay. My only thing, and I've said this on different avenues, I sometimes think the Cleveland fan can be, and since moving here to Arizona, I've seen it. I think the Cleveland fans sometimes can be complacent in mediocrity.
yep.
And do not hold their sports team accountable. The Browns have been terrible since 1999, since Al Lerner brought them back. Jimmy Haslam is awful, and no one is holding him accountable because the people of Cleveland love the Browns so much. That's why, as a coach, I can't stand the fact when someone says, hey, you had a great year. What do you mean I had a great year? I didn't win it.
Right.
My goal every year is to win it. And so if I fall short, it's not a great year for me. But when you hear Cleveland fans sometimes, oh, yes, we got to the AFC Championship. We lost, but it was a great season. No, it wasn't. You lost.
Yeah.
And so, but like I said, next season, out here in Berea or the Greenbrier where they go, you're gonna see Cleveland Browns fans.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. At the high school level, I was very fortunate and blessed to win a lot of various championships. And since going to the college ranks, we have not had an opportunity to reach that pinnacle yet. And for a coach, I'm like you, that's the goal. And you just want to be able to win with that. And mediocrity bothers me. Non-competitiveness bothers me. So I definitely hear what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Rod, man, it's been great to have you on again to talk Ohio sports. As I mentioned before, 95% of my content is Minnesota sports, mostly Minnesota Vikings talk, sprinkled in with a little bit of Timberwolves. But my love for the Ohio State, Cleveland Browns fan, Cleveland Cavaliers fan, I always got to sprinkle a little bit of that in my podcast. And, there is no one better to come to for that, your insight and your thoughts than you, man. So I really appreciate your time.
Ain't no problem. I do have a question for you, sir.
Yes, sir.
What does the Vikings quarterback situation look like for next year?
Oh, man, let me tell you this. This is an easy one, Rod. Throw me a hard one next time. This is for me. Listen, because if you go back and watch all the episodes of Unconventional Playbook, the great thing about me is I never get too high and I never get too low. When Sam Darnold was at his peak this year playing well, I said, that's great. Have a great year, but we're gonna ship you out next year. Okay. And I was consistent with that. Where he moved the needle for me is when his stock started to rise and he became more valuable to the Minnesota Vikings than he had ever been.
Okay.
So the only spot where the needle moved for me is, okay, let's franchise tag him and recoup some of our assets.
Okay.
The problem now is he pissed the bed his last two games. So now his stock has gone down a little bit. And I don't think he's going to hit that $40 million a year franchise tag mark on the open market. I think he's going to get something like the Baker Mayfield contract, 3 years, $33 million. And so it wouldn't be worth franchise tagging him. I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to have to let Sam Darnold walk. I think they're going to have to let him walk because he's not worth the $40 million. He's just not that guy. I think we roll with J.J. McCarthy, who I think is going to be absolutely box office for the Minnesota Vikings. I think we need to improve our offensive line to make sure that we keep him clean and to improve that running game. But we've got all the weapons. We've got Aaron Jones. We got Justin Jefferson. We got Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. I mean, you name it. We've got all the tools to help support a rookie quarterback. So I think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. I'm looking forward to the J.J. McCarthy era, not only because he's a talented young man, but he's got a rookie contract, coach.
Right.
And that is very valuable to a team that won 14 games this year, that now I think we're ranked 4th in terms of salary cap flexibility next year. So now we can go out and fill some holes, not have to invest a whole lot of money in a quarterback like we did with Kirk Cousins and like teams are expected to do with Sam Darnold.
Right.
We utilize J.J. McCarthy's rookie contract, and we go out and we build this already scary football team. And I think if the Minnesota Vikings do that, we are going to be good for a very long time. Now, the X factor is if J.J. McCarthy is not who we think he is, and he's just terrible at the position, now you got a problem. But I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, I'm looking forward to some good years for the Minnesota Vikings.
Okay. I just, I heard your last podcast when you talked about it. So I want to make sure, because you guys you're good in salary cap, whereas my Browns, they're in salary cap hell.
Yeah.
So, and then I heard Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft is he has Abdul Carter going first.
Okay.
So if Abdul Carter goes first, what are the Browns doing? Because then you still have your 2 quarterbacks, Shador, but then you also have Travis Hunter. You have so much. So what are the Browns going to do? I'm telling y'all right now, book this. If they do not draft Travis Hunter, the Browns will trade down.
Okay.
They will get picks and they will trade down. Maybe they will trade down to probably 3 because the Giants are desperate for a quarterback. Okay. Do I believe that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are first round quarterbacks? No. This is a very thin quarterback class.
Yep.
And I don't think that those 2 are first round picks. Now, will they be drafted first round? Yes. Okay. Don't be surprised if the Browns draft Travis Hunter at number 2 or trade down and get Jalen Milroe on the bottom of the first round. Okay. And don't be surprised that they won't shoot somewhere in there for Emeka Egbuka. They're starting to look at Ohio State guys. So, but I wanted to see I wanted to get your thoughts on J.J. McCarthy. Although he's a Michigan guy, I'm not going to hold that against him.
I know.
He's an athlete. Yeah. He reminds me a little bit of a young Brett Favre because he can move and he can sling that rock. So I'm looking forward to seeing if J.J. McCarthy's healthy, how good Minnesota is, because it's real easy to close your eyes and throw to Justin Jefferson. I can't lie to you.
Yeah. So I got another one for you, Rod. And here's one you can book. And don't kill the messenger. I'm just telling you the way I think things are going to turn out. I know you're not, I know you're not going to want to hear this. I know Minnesota Viking fans probably want to hear it. They probably don't care. But I got this sneaky suspicion that Kirk Cousins is going to end up with the Cleveland Browns. And the only reason why I say this is because he's owed money from the Falcons. He's not the Falcons have come out and said that they will welcome him back as a backup to Penix. He ain't doing that. Like I know Kirk Cousins. I know his ego. He's not coming back as a backup. Kirk Cousins wants to play. Right. And the Atlanta Falcons owes him a lot of money.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether he plays for them or not. Kirk Cousins is going to be in the same situation Russell Wilson was in last year, leaving the Denver Broncos. He's going to get his money. And so now, when whoever he signs with, he can sign for the bare minimum, which doesn't hurt the Cleveland Browns salary cap hell situation.
Right.
Plus, he has that relationship with Kevin Stefanski. Kevin Stefanski, coming from the Vikings, worked with Kirk Cousins for a couple of years there. And now and the Browns need a quarterback, and Kirk Cousins wants to play. I don't see another situation where Kirk Cousins, who wants to play, can go in and play. It looks like Sam Darnold is probably going to end up with the Raiders.
Yes.
You know, I just don't see another good situation for Kirk Cousins. That's why I think he's going to end up with the Browns, man. I just got this feeling that he's going to be there.
So here's my thought process on that, and I'm glad you set me up for that because I am not a Sam Darnold fan, but I mean not Sam Darnold, but
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins fan. But here's how I think it's gonna go down. I do think that they will bring Kirk Cousins in and give him a look and see if he still has any gas in the tank. I do believe that there's going to be another veteran quarterback coming in, i.e., maybe Jacoby Brissett, maybe Joe Flacco. They might give Flacco another shot. The Deshaun Watson experiment is over.
Yes.
He will not be on a Cleveland Browns field or in a Cleveland Browns uniform. And I hate saying this because I don't wish any ill will on the young man. I don't know if he's going to be playing another down of football ever.
Probably not.
At this point. Now, your Sam Darnold to the Raiders. Hold on, contraire, mon frere, because now they have Pete Carroll as the head coach.
Ooh, that's a good
Russell
point.
Wilson is a free agent. So don't be surprised if you see Russell Wilson go to the Raiders, okay? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers have Justin Fields. He's younger. They don't want Justin Fields to walk away. Russell Wilson was supposed to be a stopgap till they can find someone. They haven't found a quarterback since Ben retired.
Right.
So they like Justin Fields. So don't be surprised that you see Russell Wilson tra-la-la out to Las Vegas. He may show up because Pete Carroll is there. So then you ask, well, where does Sam Darnold land? Right now, even though he kind of poo-pooed the playoffs, Sam Darnold has a choice of where he wants to go. But I do think that Kirk Cousins will show up in Berea at some point in time because he's discounted. But I don't think he's going to be the only veteran that shows up. I think they're going to have a couple that come in and and try out.
Okay.
So, but no, I am not a Kirk Cousins fan. I honestly think his best years were behind him in Minnesota. Even when he left Minnesota, I wasn't a fan of him going to Atlanta. Now, he got his bag. I'm not mad at him for that. But in terms of does Kirk Cousins at this point in time in his career strike fear in any defenses? No, he doesn't. He can't move. He came off an Achilles injury. He can't move around. He's getting up in age, and he's got a lot of money that's owed to him. But because of his relationship with Stefanski, I do see him coming in. However, let me give you this scoop. Stefanski hired offensive coordinator, and they had a press conference, and Stefanski is making the play calling. He's taking the play calling back.
Yep.
But they asked him, is he going to go back to the old Kevin Stefanski offense? And he said no. Okay. He said, I'm gonna be progressive. So that doesn't automatically make Kirk Cousins the front runner. Now, if he can't find anybody else, Kirk Cousins is somebody that he's going to be able to lean on. Is he going to be able to sell Kirk Cousins to that Cleveland fan base? Come on, L Train. He ain't going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you bring back Joe Flacco, they will give him a stay of execution. If you bring back even Jacoby Brissett, they will give you a stay of execution as a bridge quarterback. But if you bring in somebody who stunk up the joint somewhere else, the Browns are going to be like, the Cleveland fans are going to be like, no, this is unacceptable. So, but great question. I dig that.
It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, man, with the Vikings, the Browns, everybody. It's going to be probably an off season to remember when everything is kind of hashed out. I can't wait to see it. But
Right.
again, man, thank you for coming
on. Buckeyes, man. We could
What's
always
that?
lean on the Buckeyes.
We can always lean on the Buckeyes. hey, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't know,
Yeah.
Rod. They looking good, man.
Man, listen, they have lost 2 to the Houston Rockets badly. They lost to a Joel Embiid-less Philadelphia 76ers team with PG-13, who looks like he don't feel like playing. Okay. They have some issues, the Cavs right now. They're going through a stretch and they needed to, and it's fine, but they got to address some things. And it's still the wing. They have to address the wing and Jared Allen. I'm saying this, and I know my Cleveland fans, some may agree, some may disagree. Jared Allen shrinks when he plays bigger centers, because Şengün last night absolutely manhandled him. And there is no fight. There's no fight. And that's the problem with Jared Allen. Jared Allen is the linchpin of the Cavaliers, but Jared Allen has got to get tougher. He's got to be mean. But
it's a long season. The Cavs are going to have their stretch. I was surprised at where they are right now. I'm not surprised that they're winning at a high clip, but just the way that they're doing it. It'll be interesting to see what if they can stay healthy. If they my worry is health.
Yes.
My worry is health, and I think the Celtics are going to be a daunting task for them. I'm not 100% buying in on the Knicks and my boy Karl Anthony Towns, but I think they'll be there. But if the Cavs can stay healthy, they give themselves a shot for sure.
Yeah.
Please hit that like and subscribe button. This is Unconventional Playbook. Coach Young, man, thank you for joining the cast. It doesn't have to be about Ohio State or Cleveland Browns stuff or Cleveland Cavaliers stuff, man. We're going to have you on in future podcasts. I got a lot of positive feedback from UP Nation saying, who is this guy? Who is this new guy you got on that's dropping knowledge about, your Ohio State Buckeyes and Cleveland Browns. So you're getting a lot of great positive feedback. I know UP Nation wants to see more of you. So we're definitely going to have you back, man.
Absolutely, man. It gives me a reason to watch something else other than the Cleveland Browns. I can go ahead and I honestly, I was a Minnesota Vikings fan because one of my high school players I got an opportunity to coach actually was a Minnesota Viking, and that was Everson Griffin.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of watching him play in high school and then watching him go to USC and then coming to Minnesota. So I was a Minnesota. I actually have his Minnesota Vikings jersey. So UP Nation, I'm a closet Minnesota Vikings fan. All right, I want y'all to understand that. Okay, I go way back. All right, to Chuck Foreman and Tommy Kramer. I go back, so I understand the Minnesota Vikings. So I love my Brown, I love my Buckeyes, but I'm a sports guy. So yeah, I would love UP Nation. I appreciate y'all, man. I appreciate keep supporting my man here, man. This is a great podcast. L Train, I love you, dog. I appreciate you.
I love you too, man, and appreciate you coming on. Again, looking forward to doing more podcasts with you. This has been Unconventional Playbook, and as I do in all my podcasts, I like to promote my son's music as well. Latray, who's doing big things out in the Pacific Northwest with his raps and his music. We had him on the podcast picking games earlier this year, so he's doing some fantastic stuff. And as I say at the end of each episode, we'll see you when we see you. Latray, take us home, man.